Yorkshire Avenue and Kansas Avenue. Once the fire department was able to extinguish the flames, investigators entered the house to search for any clues that may lead to an explanation as to why the shooter went on this killing spree. The investigators entered a back bedroom in the house and located 2 charred piles of blankets. Under one pile of blankets was the shooter's 55-year-old father, and under the other pile was the shooter's 25-year-old brother. The police quickly concluded that the shooter had shot both his father and brother in the home and then set it on fire. His mom, luckily, had been out of the country in Lebanon visiting family members on a month-long vacation. Detective Chad Goodwin, who was assigned to be the lead detective on the case, was able to make contact with the shooter's mother and tell her the terrible tragedy that had taken place. She was able to book the next flight out of Lebanon back to California, where detectives met her at the airport. It was soon obvious that the mother had no idea that her own son planned to take the lives of her husband, older son, and 3 strangers while wounding 4 others. It didn't take long for Detective Goodwin to figure out that this investigation was just starting, and he was staring at a long 1.5-mile crime scene ahead of him. We will be right back after this short message. Santa Monica College was founded in 1929 in the city of Santa Monica, located on the western side of Los Angeles County. The college enrolls an average of 30,000 students per year, and it employs over 2,000 workers. They offer over 90 fields of study, and the college is known for its great atmosphere and beautiful campus. In 2018, the city had an estimated population of 91,411. Santa Monica is a relatively safe town located on Santa Monica Bay, and most crime that happens is property crime. The resort-style town is most well known for the Santa Monica Pier. The 1,600-foot-long pier was built in 1909 and in 1983 underwent major improvements. The pier hosts multiple family-friendly events every year, including free concerts, roller coasters, a historical carousel, arcade games, and an aquarium.
The Santa Monica Pier is one of the West Coast's oldest pleasure piers, dating back to 1909.
Pacific Park serves up all kinds of family fun, from carnival-style boardwalk amusements to fast-moving roller coasters. It's the West Coast's only amusement park located on a pier.
The shooter took the lives of 5 people, including his own father and brother. Other victims of this terrible tragedy include Carlos Franco and Marcela Franco, who were just leaving the Santa Monica College after Marcela had picked up her textbooks for the upcoming semester. She was previously enrolled at California State University, Dominguez Hills. However, the university didn't offer the courses that she needed to finish her degree in psychology, so she decided to enroll at Santa Monica College, where she could take the classes she needed. She had big dreams of becoming a clinical psychologist and was known for being smart, beautiful, and outgoing. Her father, Carlos Franco, was a groundskeeper at Santa Monica College and had been for the past 22 years. Born on January 20th, 1945, Carlos was an integral part of Santa Monica College and was very dedicated to his work. He rarely showed any emotion at home. Rather, he showed his love by putting food on the table and helping his kids pay for their college tuition. An immigrant from Mexico, Carlos was a dedicated father and husband who always put others before himself. As the father and daughter duo were leaving the college, a man dressed in all black started firing at them through the windshield of their red Ford Explorer. Due to being shot in the face, Carlos had lost control of his vehicle, causing it to hit a brick wall. Carlos was declared dead at the scene.
Carlos was leaving the college with Marcela, and he called Letty. We're here representing her mother, Letty. And he called Letty, and he says, "I'm running a little late, but I want you to know I still love you." He doesn't do that. And then we never heard from him again.
When first responders and the ambulance crew first arrived, they knew that Carlos was past the point of saving his life. Sadly, he was gone. The EMTs focused their time and efforts on Marcela, who was alive, but barely. She was immediately taken to Ronald Reagan UCLA Hospital, where she would be declared clinically brain dead. Born on September 19, 1986, Marcela would be pronounced dead 2 days after the shooting, on June 9, 2013. Life support was keeping her alive, and when her family decided to take her off, she died just a few minutes later, surrounded by family and friends. Marcela and her father, Carlos, were very close. The family said that Marcela was a daddy's girl, and they would frequently spend time together. Because Carlos and Marcela did have such a close relationship, the family thought it was only proper that they celebrate their lives together and held their funerals at the same time.
The biggest decision today, after 48 hours, was that Marcela, we took her off life support, and she took her last breath this morning. And we spent the last 48 hours like a cocoon. We wouldn't let anybody in there. It was just us. And we were loving her and telling her how much we loved her, and that we're going to miss her. And we're going to miss her. And this world is going to miss the Marcela Franco and Carlos Franco of the world, who are decent, loving, committed people.
When Sergeant Bottenfield and Officers Salas and Sparks passed a woman lying on the ground, gravely injured, it was all they could do to ignore their police officer instincts to stop and help. They needed to concentrate on their training and what they needed to do, which was to eliminate the threat. The woman was Margarita Gomez, a 68-year-old woman who was well known on campus for going through the trash and collecting recyclable containers. In the state of California, you can recycle bottles and cans and receive a small deposit in return. For containers that were less than 24 ounces, you receive 5 cents back, and for containers over 24 ounces, you receive 10 cents. Many of the Santa Monica students didn't know Margarita's name. They only knew her as the lady with the cans, as she would go around the entire campus, once in the morning and once in the afternoon, looking for recyclables. She used the extra money that she earned to help pay for the never-ending bills that she had. Margarita grew up in Mexico, but had lived in Santa Monica for the past 28 years. She absolutely loved the city of Santa Monica. She was also active in church and was well liked by everyone. She lived in a home right next to the college campus. She enjoyed helping others and loved her grandchildren with all that she had. On Thursdays, she would meet with seniors at the park and enjoy their company. Usually Margarita didn't collect cans on Fridays, generally only going Monday through Thursday, but for some reason, she decided to go this Friday. We will probably never know why she made this decision that would ultimately cost her her life. She died in the afternoon on the day she was shot. The 5'8" young man was supposed to be turning 24 years old on the day after the shooting. He grew up suffering through a very bitter divorce. His parents were constantly at each other's throats and always fighting over the custody of the 2 boys. Both of his parents were immigrants from Lebanon and were married in 1985. For as long as anyone who knew the shooter remembered, he had always been interested in assault weapons. He was described as being very clingy to his mother growing up.
There was a bitter divorce, and when the kids were minors, they split custody between the 2 parents. When they got to be an adult, one child went to live with the mother, and the other boy stayed living here.
In 2006, the shooter was enrolled at Olympic High School, which was a disciplinary-type school. The principal had contacted the police to report a troubled student that a concerned parent called the school about. The shooter had been caught researching assault weapons on the school's internet system, as well as researching videos on YouTube about how to make bombs. When police investigated the home, they found various bomb-making supplies. At this time, he was taken into custody for an involuntary mental evaluation. He was then taken to a mental treatment center and was released a short time later. Around the same time, the shooter had a friend over to his home, where the shooter showed him a samurai sword. He then went on to tell his friend about all the people he would kill if given the chance. The friend alerted his mother, who then let the authorities know about the shooter's deadly plan. After this incident, he was sent to UCLA's Neuropsychiatric Institute, but was again quickly released. The shooter's mom stated she saw a very different side of her son. She reported that their home was a very happy household. The family enjoyed watching Seinfeld, wrestling, the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Los Angeles Dodgers. According to his mother, the very dark side started to emerge from the shooter when he was around 15 or 16 years old. At one point in time, the shooter was sent to a treatment facility in Houston, Texas, where he stayed for about a year. His mother finally started to see positive results and said that the shooter did well at the treatment center and seemed to be letting his light and happy side shine again. After returning from Houston, authorities were shocked to see that the shooter was not only back in town, but was allowed back into a school setting. After the shooter had turned 18, he pretty much fell off police officers' radar and stayed out of trouble. Sometime before the shooting, the shooter had enrolled at Santa Monica College, studying video game production. He never did finish school, however, and didn't obtain a degree. His parents' split had reached the point where the shooter was living with his mom in an apartment, and his older brother and father were living in the home that was set on fire. The relationship between the shooter's mother and father was volatile, to say the least. According to his mother, his father was a very abusive person. Shortly before the shooting, she had filed for a restraining order against her husband due to his controlling and abusive behavior. He had even threatened to get a gun and kill her multiple times.
5 years apart, there were divorce papers that were filed, including in 1998 a restraining order by the mother against the father. And essentially what it shows is not only accusations of being accosted, of trying to take the children who were young then, as well as stalking type behavior. And they paint a picture of a violence in a family. Now, what we don't know is how this plays into what happened on Friday. Certainly, that's one thing that authorities are looking at. And the mother just returned from Lebanon.
While the police were investigating the shooting, they noticed something odd about the firearm used in the mass shooting. The shooter had a gun that some refer to as a ghost gun. A ghost gun isn't built by an actual gun manufacturer, but by someone who buys gun parts and assembles the gun themselves, usually at home. There isn't a serial number on the ghost gun, making it impossible for investigators to track. When the police searched through the burnt remains in the home, they found multiple boxes that had once held different gun parts, as well as receipts for the parts. It was clear to investigators that the shooter had bought the gun parts online and assembled it himself. The police also found a drill press and cutting tools that were presumed to be used to assemble the gun. This is a legal loophole that is difficult for authorities to control, as it's perfectly legal to buy gun parts online, but it's near impossible to track these parts and know exactly where the gun and gun parts will end up.
You can buy legally certain parts. It's called an 80%. You can buy those parts, and you can buy an under receiver, the over and the under. You can put them together with a trigger group, and you can manufacture your own gun if you make some adjustments. In this particular case, the weapon that he ended up with ultimately is one that by definition would be illegal to possess here in the state of California.
The police say that he basically was able to buy these component parts through various magazines, via the web, and the components themselves are legal. That 80% gun is legal.
Upon searching the residence, investigators had found a letter denying him permission to purchase a firearm. While the letter doesn't specifically state why the shooter was denied the right to purchase a gun, we can only assume that it was probably due to the 2006 incident where he was caught researching assault weapons and bomb-making videos. The shooter had left a couple of clues that proved that the assault was something that he had been planning. He had been an avid player of the online computer game, The World of Warcraft. He logged on to the game before the killings and left a message for his online friends saying he would miss playing games with them. Police also found a 3-page goodbye note in the shooter's pocket after he had been killed. Investigators were hoping that the shooter would write some sort of motive in the letter, giving them an idea of why he thought he had to commit such an abysmal act. Ultimately, they would be very disappointed that the shooter didn't leave any sort of clues in the letter. He apologized to his mom, though, for the shootings, and said how he hoped that she will benefit from his father's, her husband's, estate. He also expressed remorse for taking the lives of his father and brother.
What we know about this note is this is something that was actually found on his body. He was carrying it with him, handwritten, 3 to 4 pages in length. And what police are saying is that it was a conversational note. They took great pains. You heard the police chief there saying that it was a farewell note. They're not characterizing it as a suicide note.
The Santa Monica College shooting brought a government loophole to light that very few knew about, which is purchasing gun parts separately and building their own firearms. This is an issue that can only get worse. Now with the use of 3D printers, people are able to print their own gun parts, assembling them and creating their own gun. After the shooting, the shooter was buried in the cemetery next to his brother and father.